Holy damn. I've just got back from Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I have to say it was probably one of the best experiences I've had going to a cinema. Even though I love Marvel on this channel, Ghostbusters will firmly have a place in my heart. The way movies used to look in the 80s just have a charm that I don't think we can achieve today. Well, I didn't think we could. And now with Ghostbusters Afterlife, it tells me that we can still recapture some of that 80s nostalgia with a bit of modern feel thrown in there for some spice. So welcome to the second episode of TommyCFlix, a series I do on this channel where I take a look at the film, discuss what I did and didn't like about it, and then compare it to some of the things that LEGO brought out for it. So strap in because there's some major spoilers ahead.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
I want to split this video into some key areas. Obviously only having one LEGO set based on this film, being what I'm going to dub the Recto 1, it's safe to say that this film didn't get that much love in terms of LEGO's eyes unless they got some more things up their sleeve. But the set we did get was one of the best sets of the year in my opinion, so when we get to the stage where we actually talk about Afterlife, I'll talk about the set that's based on the film around that sort of time. For now, I just want to give a sort of brief history of what this film has had to go through to actually be made. Ghostbusters 3 has been a rumor, at least that I know of, since 2014, and I think it's safe to say that it could also predate that. The original two Ghostbusters were written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, the two people that played Ray and Egon in the Ghostbusters film. These two people coming up with the original concept of Ghostbusters has wanted to make a third one for some time. However, with the passing of Harold Ramis in 2014, that idea was heavily canned, thinking that they couldn't make the film without him. Obviously, they've now made Ghostbusters Afterlife, but there was a brief period where Sony thought they could reboot the series, but more on that later. Obviously there's a 30-second version of that story, but I actually want to get to the Afterlife film. I strongly suggest if you're into Ghostbusters that you check out the history of Ghostbusters 3, but I'm sure if you're a fan of the franchise you've already heard. To say I liked Ghostbusters Afterlife is a complete understatement. This film was a clear homage to the original film, taking a lot of character tropes, and even at times reusing the story, done in a modern and creative way. And although it was a really fun nostalgia trip, it was clear to me at least in the film that they were introducing new characters to take the new mantle as the new Ghostbusters. Introducing new characters like Phoebe, Trevor, Podcast, and Lucky. A lot of characters which I feel in the film I learnt enough about to be satisfied in terms of character development, and if I'm honest, the actors themselves did a fantastic job playing these characters. I normally have a massive issue with child actors, mainly because most of the time they're just not good. And it's not always the kid's fault. Sometimes the script demands a certain character trait or joke that the kid just can't do, and therefore it comes off as cardboard, boring child acting that most of the time is incredibly cringy. This doesn't happen in this film, and it's one thing I really appreciate about this film is clearly they've put a lot of time and effort into who they're hiring, so their characters in their world are believable and not a walking piece of cardboard that occasionally pulls a stupid face. And that's the first segment I want to talk about, the characters. Like I've already said, I find them extremely believable for the Ghostbusters universe, and totally buy characters like Trevor and Phoebe being grandchildren of Egon, with Phoebe adopting most of the weird character traits, such as obsessing over learning and science, and Trevor adopting the more tinkering side, like inventing and car mechanics. Both things that are established before we even really get to know them, with Trevor fixing his mum's car when they broke down on the way to Egon's house, and Phoebe being established to be able to pick locks and also play chess. Both scenes showing the audience that these aren't your just regular kids. Something that I wish a lot more films nowadays would do, establishing your characters to have notable traits and skills before they're even shown in use later on in the film. This technique is called Chekhov's gun, and not many filmmakers I see, at least nowadays, utilize it in an effective way. As for Podcast and Lucky, I definitely think they're the more underappreciated characters in this universe, but I like the fact that not all of them got the same screen time, as I feel adding to the screen time with pointless dialogue and exposition that we don't really need about these characters would feel like a waste of time, and that is something that could be explored in potential sequels. However, I have got to say the kid playing Podcast did really well on delivering some of the jokes that I know other child actors just wouldn't be able to pull off, and there wasn't one other moment to me that felt like he wasn't a believable character. As for Paul Rudd's Gary and Egon's daughter, both of them played off each other very well, meaning their scenes together were very funny and entertaining, and overall a very solid cast for this film. As for the story of this film, it's clearly a ramp up off of Ghostbusters 1, reusing the same villain, adding some more context to the original Ghostbusters, and if I'm honest, I'm glad that they've reused this, because I was never satisfied in Ghostbusters 1 when Gozer just straight up vanished and replaced with the Marshmallow Man. It would have been nice to see the quote-unquote ghost form of Gozer actually get destroyed in Ghostbusters 1, which is exactly what Afterlife does. And might I add that Gozer in Ghostbusters Afterlife looks a hell of a lot more terrifying in this film than Ghostbusters 1. I really liked the design change with the full black eyes, the lightning bodysuit, and when half the soul is ripped out, she turns into a skeleton. Very reminiscent of the librarian we saw at the very beginning of Ghostbusters 1. Intentional? I don't know, but a fun nod nonetheless. I also appreciate the use of puppetry and CGI emulated to look like the effects from 1984, making it truly feel like Ghostbusters 1984 has stepped into the modern world. And it's like I say, they definitely did reuse some concepts from Ghostbusters 1, however it definitely did feel like a continuation of Ghostbusters 1 using the same concept, making it a fun nod to the original Ghostbusters fans, but introducing Ghostbusters into a modern era where new fans of Ghostbusters can really get behind these new characters, see them as their original Ghostbusters, and keep this franchise going for another 30 odd years. The story had a really satisfying ending if you ask me, and left me wanting more from the Ghostbusters franchise rather than saying, oh yeah, that's one and done. It felt like everything in this film had its own purpose, and was put there for a reason. Learning of the main Ghostbusters mega trap in literally the opening of the film, slowly unraveling the mystery with these new characters, and with all the puzzle pieces in place, truly do use them all to save the day. Even things like the Ecto-1 and the little RTV feel a lot more like characters in this film bouncing off of each other, even though they're just inanimate objects. Something that the 2016 version of Ghostbusters failed to do drastically, and was honestly the reason that a lot of us hated this film. And if you ask me, is a retread of Ghostbusters 1 done absolutely terribly, changing a lot of the things that made the Ghostbusters film memorable, as well as keeping the fans entertained for 30 plus years. Something clearly that Sony realized when putting Afterlife into development. Fun story, Ghostbusters 2016 was actually my first movie review I ever did on Iwatai, my previous channel, and I talked a lot in that video about how critics loved that film for all the wrong reasons and fans wishing it had never been made. And now the opposite's happening, with fans loving this film and critics saying it's a reused story and it borrows too much from the original film. You just can't please people, eh? And I go very in depth in talking about how we need to make more films for the fans rather than the critics, and Ghostbusters Afterlife does a damn good job appealing to their fan base, as well as bringing Ghostbusters into a modern era that with a writing team like this I could see easily having 2 more films. And lastly, I just want to talk about the original cast. Most of the original cast came back for this film, with the exception of a few like Rick Moranis, but hey, he wasn't really needed in the film. It truly was nice to see the Ghostbusters come back for one final time to bust some ghosts, and put to bed the whole Gozer situation like I said before, really solidifying that character arc, and like I say, is a nice satisfying ending watching them all fit right back into those characters as if I had just knew them as those characters and not actors just playing those roles. But one thing I really want to talk about is Harold Ramis. The actor died in 2014, and although Ghostbusters Afterlife opens with a scene of him, they black out his face for most of it, as it's obviously another actor playing Egon, as Harold Ramis can't reprise his role. But the ending scene where he comes back as a ghost and you see his face blew my tiny mind so hard in the cinema my jaw dropped to the floor. Maybe it was the blue effect that was around him, but I truly thought that this was the actor Harold Ramis on my screen. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a deepfake. I don't know if it's full CG. I actually couldn't tell, and if I'm honest, it's an incredibly ballsy shot to have this character not only appear on screen, but show his face fully. And not just for one shot, he was there for an entire sequence. Even the ghost interacting with other humans in the scene was incredible, and it was the first CG character I looked at and couldn't tell if they were real or not. My hat truly is off to the visual effects department that did Egon for the end sequence of this film, and I've explained a little bit about how much I like the new Ghostbusters set. However, it didn't come with any minifigures, and I would love to see a Ghost Egon figure as a minifigure, along with all the old man Ghostbusters. I could see them doing this in a sort of 18 plus abandoned mansion kind of way, with 10 minifigures, all 4 of the old Ghostbusters, including Ghost Egon, all 4 of the new Ghostbusters that we're getting out of this film, and then additional characters like Egon's daughter, Gary, and Gozer. All figures I think that Ghostbusters fans would really appreciate getting. I am in no way saying that I don't like the Ghostbusters Ecto-1 set from LEGO, but I am a minifigures man, and I'd love to see another set where they take this concept and go further, but I love that original set. And although I wish they had beaten it up a little bit more by brick building some dents and using some other colours, I understand why they kept it to the sticker sheet so you could rebuild the original if you really wanted to. I truly do think that Ghostbusters Afterlife has a few more sets in them than just the one, and can completely understand why they wouldn't want to release a set like that early, considering it would be a major spoiler for the film. But it's okay, because the set that we did get was pretty damn awesome as well, and if you want to hear my full opinions on it, I've already made a video on this set when it came out. I voiced all my opinions on that set in that video, so you should click the screen to go watch it. Click the screen, I'll see you in the next one.